So growing up, I lived in China and Taiwan. China, I was a baby. I was like 3 months old or something when we went over there, something like that. My mom will correct me probably, but I was really little. But a lot of crazy stuff happened in China. Uh, People like to feed me a lot of things. I think I was giving a lot of alcohol as a child. My parents said often in China, like they used to have this little carrier that my dad would carry me in that was like a backpack. And they'd be walking somewhere or they would be just watching a parade or something, just out and about. And then all of a sudden my dad would feel like something dripping on his head. And at some point, someone had given me a peach or someone had given me an ice cream cone. And people in China, they just loved babies. And so stuff that in the US, if someone did that to your kid, it'd be like, hey, don't do that. But everyone in China did that. Everyone loved babies and that even carried over in Taiwan. Like I remember my little brother would get passed around every sacrament meeting, like to the whole ward. Everyone would get a couple minutes with the cute, chubby American baby. I think Taiwan was more memorable for me just because I actually have memories of going to school there and everything. Taiwan is like so different than the United States in a lot of ways. There's things that are very important to them culturally that we could not give two craps about in the United States. And I couldn't really find the inverse of that in Taiwan. Like, there's a lot of people who follow like Buddhism and stuff like that there. And so there's all these paths that people just create that are just supposed to help you feel peace, you know? It was weird because sometimes they would be there'd be like a road, a two-way road, and in the middle of this road was like a mini park. And it would have like a sidewalk, but the sidewalk was made out of these like river stones. And you were supposed to walk on it without shoes. And it would like cool your jets and help you relax and stuff. They also don't know what the word safety means. There was just some pieces of equipment that we were playing on that as an adult now, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm still alive. They had these stone slides that were it looked like a skateboard ramp, and you would climb up the sides and you would just slide down. It was super smooth. But I mean, when you were at the top of that, there's no guardrails or anything, and you're like 15 or 20 feet in the air, and you could totally fall off. But like there's habits that I carried with me. Like in Taiwan, if you get scared, you will do this to your heart to show that your heart is beating fast, like that you got really scared. So like if you scare an old person, they'd be like, whoa, and I could think you give them a heart attack or something. But even now, like if someone scares me really bad, I will catch myself patting my heart, like, like food is like crazy cheap in Taiwan. Oh, a place that you could go to get awesome food though, that we would go to a lot was the night market. So like on the weekends, like every night for like most of the night, like this market would just open up and they would sell all kinds of stuff. Like if you've ever been to like Chinatown in New York where they have all those shops set up and people are buying, it's like that. My favorite thing though, my two favorite things just as a kid, they had these in Taiwan, in China, they don't do like sweet like we do in the US. Like they don't have like a lot of like the sugar that we have. Like their sugar comes from like beans and stuff like that. So they do a lot more savory and like fruit flavored things. Um, like there was this bun, and inside the bun was this red bean paste. And it's like one of my favorite things in the world. Like I still love it to this day. I don't even know if anyone else in my family likes it. We got everyone in my family, we all have our own weird tastes from Taiwan. My little brother loves dried seaweed. Like he eats that like a fiend. But yeah, so those buns with the red paste inside. And then they had these traditional like rice cakes that were wrapped in like banana leaves or tea leaves or something. And they were really popular during a festival season. I think it was the Moon Festival. They'd make moon cakes, and then you'd have these. And it was just like a triangle of fried rice with pork and like beans in it, and it was so good. But they had a bunch of cool stuff that you can't get in the US because it's illegal here. Like, my dad used to buy me these Game Boy cartridges from the night market for like $5, and it would have like 1,000 games on it. And like they were games that they totally stole from like Nintendo and like all these other companies, and they just put them on there. And I still have a bunch of them, and they're freaking sweet. So, favorite video games growing up. I think the first video game that like blew me away was Call of Duty. That was like the first one where I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And like that was the first one where my dad was like, hey, if you get ready for church fast, like you have like 2 hours that you can play Call of Duty before church. And I was never late for church after that. My friends and I would play Nazi zombies together a lot, you know. Call of Duty Nazi Zombies, that was always a winner. Knights of the Old Republic 2, my dad got me that game, and that game like changed. It was like my first role-playing game, and it was so cool. And I've always loved Star Wars, but it was just like, you know, and it happened to be like one of the best made games of all time, but I was like 11 and I didn't know that. But super cool game. So when I was like a kid, I loved like Ed, Edd and Eddy. That was one of my favorite cartoons. Jimmy Neutron, classic. Justice League Unlimited, liked all those. Teen Titans, not the ones where they're like, not Teen Titans Go, but like the good one, the actual Teen Titans. When I got older, loved The Office. I remember being in middle school watching The Office with my family. When I was in middle school and high school, watched SNL a lot. There's lots of movies.
Name top 3.
Top 3? Any one of the original trilogy of Star Wars. Like, I love all 3 of those movies. I watched them, like some of my earliest memories are watching those movies. A movie that I saw that like was so good that kind of changed me a little bit, where I was like, wow, like you only experience that one time. You have to wait till you're older to watch this, but it was No Country for Old Men. It's a really good movie. And Kung Fu Panda 2. That is an incredible movie. If I could hang out with 2 musicians, one for sure would be Johnny Cash. I think that guy is really cool. He has a really interesting life story, especially like with his spirituality. But I feel like he was like one of the last great cowboys that we have, you know. I remember I told someone I hated country music, and they were like, but you like Johnny Cash. And I was like, it's not country music. But I mean, he is, but I never even considered him like as a country musician. There's a guy named Teddy Hyde that I really like. He's kind of a small-time musician, but he's just a really talented artist. And he hasn't released a lot of music, but I really like what he's released. I have a nickname, and it's Jiffy. For those of you that don't know, when I was about to start 6th grade, I was going to a school called Channing Hall. So like the very first day, like the first day that we held classes, we weren't even in the school that we were going to be in because the school wasn't even finished being built yet. Like it wasn't safe for people to use it yet. So we were like in like a hotel lobby or something. And they split us all up and they had us take these assessment tests. And then they put us into classes, and we met all the teachers that could be our teachers. And my teacher, and this guy ended up being my teacher, his name's Kevin Worthley. But he came into the class and he was taking roll just to see who was here. And there was another Tanner in my class. And we had the same initials. So he couldn't just call one of us Tanner M because he was Tanner Mangum. But that day I woke up late. And I'd gotten in a lot of trouble because my mom had woken me up at like 7 because we'd be there at like 8:30. And she had to go take my brother somewhere. I totally fell back asleep. So when she came home, it's like 7:50 or so, and I'm in bed asleep. So she's like, we gotta go, hurry. Like, you gotta wear this uniform. And I was like, oh, uniform, oh, sorry. And then I didn't have time to do my hair. And so I put on a hat, and it was just my dad just collects hats. So it was a hat, it was a Jiffy Lube hat. I don't even know where he got it. I just wore it. And that teacher saw that and he was like, well, I can't have two Tanner M's, so I'm just gonna call you Jiffy. And we all just kind of laughed because it was just kind of silly. But he was like, I'm serious. If you're in my class, like I'm totally calling you that. And even if you're not in my class, whenever I see you, I'm calling you that. And I was like, okay. So I got assigned to his class and everyone called me that. And the school's kind of smaller, so we were like pretty close. And I just had those groups of friends that when we went to different schools that just called me that and just kind of stuck. And everyone just called me Jiffy. So Kevin Worthley, he had just finished being like a student teacher, I believe, before he came to our class. So we were like his first like big boy class, I think. He's very passionate about history, everything about history. And he instilled that passion in his students. But he was very passionate about World War II. And I think at the beginning of the year, he asked the class, because I something had happened, and I think he realized that a lot of people didn't know about the Holocaust, or a lot of people our age didn't know. So he asked us if we knew what that was, and I don't think anyone in our class knew. And so he told us about it, and we started learning about it. And we read a lot of books, and some of them were like Otto, like the Diary of Anne Frank, you know? And then some of them were like Daniel Half Human, which were historical fiction, but, you know, just kind of laid out that picture. We were just shocked that that had happened. And I think it was good. It was really good for us because like just in learning about it, like we were like, but why did they do that to that group of people? Like it just didn't make sense. And he encouraged that it didn't make sense. He's like, you're right, this is a terrible thing. And he really just taught us the value of life. And it taught me the value of life and like how people are important and like how it's important to judge people by like the content of their character and not by anything else, not by things that people can't control, you know? And I think it was just so enlightening to learn that about that at a young age and to be able to choose then that I didn't want to ever be like that, you know? And not that I think people at that age choose to be, you know, they're like, I can't wait to be a Nazi or whatever. But I think learning that everyone is our equal and having that just be just so confirmed, I think that was it was just a really healthy thing. So Spencer is like 5.5 years younger than me. I always wanted a little brother, and he was great. He was a little terror, and it was hilarious. When we lived in Taiwan, he was like 2 or 3, and he would constantly, we lived on like the 8th floor, constantly throwing stuff off the balcony. One time I got this sweet remote control car from the United States from my grandma and grandpa Watts. Spencer saw that thing, and the next thing I knew, it's taking a dive right off the freaking building. It just shattered. And I remember, my dad loves this story, but I was so angry. And my dad's like, oh, I know you're angry. And I was like, I just want to punch him, Dad. Can I punch him? And my dad's like, nope, can't punch him. You're like 10 times his size. Spencer always had this, I don't want to say devious. It was a little bit devious when he was a baby. He was a devious baby. But when he got older, it became much more like, it was just like a jokester. He struggled to figure out what pranks were like okay and what pranks were like too far, or it was like putting someone in harm. My parents and I would blame Tom and Jerry because he used to watch that all the time. And he loved that. And my mom got scared because one time, like the little mouse like beat the cat in the head with like a bat, and then the cat got like steamrolled, and my like 2 or 3-year-old brother thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. And he's like, the cat's like, ow, and my little brother's like, and he's like 3 years old. My mom's like, we are raising a psycho. He had this prank that was very common when he was like first or second grade, where he would ask if he could have a bite of something, and he would take it and go, and he would shove the whole thing in his mouth. Even if it couldn't fit, he didn't care. Like half of it would be poking out, And he almost choked himself a couple times because he'd be laughing so hard because the other person would be so angry. And so he did this reverse of that prank where he apologized to me and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, that I ate your thing earlier. He's like, I got you this roll. And I was like, oh, dude, thank you. And it was like, we had gotten like those, they were really good rolls. I can't remember where we got them, but I was really happy he brought me one. And I take a bite out of it and I almost shatter my teeth because this kid has taken like a river rock and he hollowed out the roll and he shoved the rock in there. And I was like, oh, and my dad was like, are you okay? Like he heard my teeth clack against this rock. And my little brother is dying and he thought that was like the funniest thing in the world. And he got in so much trouble for that, but he just thought it was funny. And had these like crates set up in my room, like these milk crates that I would like put like shoes or books in or whatever. Like they're pretty cool. And what my little brother did is he shut the door to my bedroom because I was at a scout camp out. And he took 2 bungee cords and he tied one of them to my bedroom door. And then he tied the other one to the bottom milk crate. And it was like taut, like it was really tight. And so when I got home, I opened my bedroom door and it was kind of hard to open. So I yanked it a little bit, totally yanked out the bottom of my milk crates and like all of them, there's like 20, just all over my floor. They spill everywhere. I hear Spencer go, oh my gosh, it worked. And he runs from his bedroom. He's like, ah. I'm like, dude, you are cleaning this up. He did not clean it up. I cleaned it up. I mean, we weren't always friends, We had pretty big age difference, like almost 6 years. And like, sometimes we just did things to each other and whatever. But we have a lot of good memories. Like we had this bunk bed. And we used to, my great grandma, when she passed away, she had this really old TV and my little brother wanted it so bad. My parents were like, okay, you can have it. But we like, at first he didn't have anything to like plug into it. And so he just had bunny ears. So he made this box fort that he could use, climb into his bunk bed and then climb through these boxes. And he had like this tiny little living room set up. And so we used to like go and like, when my parents were sleeping, we would like sneak food and we'd store them like in his living room. And then every night we'd like watch something. But it was like, this is when TV, you could watch it over bunny ears and stuff. And like, so we were watching like Frasier, like we don't know what's going on. Like it's like Friends or Frasier and we're eating like a cold hot dog or something that we stole from the fridge. We played video games together a lot. I have a lot of good memories of like playing Sly and Battlefront. And, sometimes we'd argue over it, but I just remember a lot of fun with that. And I had a lot of fun with Spencer. And as I've gotten older, even, like, I feel like we've gotten closer when we talk about more stuff. And, I just love that kid so much. Spencer, you're a good guy. And you have so much value. And it's okay to try things and to fail. It's just a part of life, And I like, honestly, I know we've talked a couple times and you feel sometimes like you're in my shadow a little bit, but it's not even that, Spencer. Like I failed so much in my life, like even in college, like there's a bunch of classes I had to retake. There's like a whole semester of college that I have where I just basically burned money because I like failed all those classes. But I learned from all that and I grew. And so I don't want you to be afraid of failing because that's going to happen. But the fear comes from not learning from the failure or not progressing, but becoming stagnant. And Spencer, you're such a smart kid. And you just have, I seriously believe that you could be whatever you wanted still, If you wanted to be an architect, you could still do that. If you wanted to work like with NASA on space stuff or rockets, I think you could still do that. And I think you still have so much time in life to figure out what you want to do. And it's just about picking a direction and going. And I love you, buddy. You're a good kid.